Welcome to this episode of When Friends Come Over. Today, I'm not only joined by my friend, but I'm joined by my older sister, Laura, my wiser, beautiful, and we do, if you're watching this, you can probably tell that we are sisters. And so thank you so much, my beautiful sister, Laura, for joining me on this episode.
Not a problem at all. I'm incredibly excited to do this today and very excited to do it with you as well. It's my first podcast.
Oh, yay. Well, you can become a regular because you are so wise and you've got so much knowledge from your years of studying and practicing in many fields. Today's episode, I really want to focus on how to be a really great friend to an introvert. And I thought you would be so good at talking about this because you are an amazing introvert, you're an amazing human, and I think that you would have a lot of wisdom on this. And so I just want to hear some of your secrets on how to be a better friend, extroverts to introverts, but also introverts to introverts, how we can just show up better for each other. And so I want to dive in and ask you the question of what do you think most extroverts think about introverts?
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. So I think most extroverts think that introverts are a problem to be fixed. And that's something that bothers me quite a lot. And I think, sometimes very well-intentioned extroverts, I don't think it's ever, not with good intention, but I think I've often felt like I've been dragged out to events or things that I don't necessarily want to go to. It might be parties, events, or things like that with lots of people, and I've been dragged along with an extrovert because they think that this will help me in some way, shape, or form, and that it's good for me to go and do these types of things. So I think for me that's probably one of the things that I think extroverts think about introverts, that somehow we're defective in some way, or that we have a problem that needs fixing. And I don't know, I could be wrong. I could be wrong in terms of that, but just I guess in my own personal experience, that's probably some of the things that I have experienced myself. And I think for many years went along to a lot of those things, actually perceiving that maybe I did have a problem, and that I did need to, kind of just tough it up and enjoy being around all the other people, I guess. And it's only been in probably more recent years that I've really embraced just being an introvert, and I've actually really accepted that and being really okay with it, and know that I'm not broken.
No. I know some of my own experience of developing my own, introversion and celebrating that in me. What do you think are the superpowers that introverts bring to a friendship?
Yeah. Okay. So I think probably one of the biggest things is the capacity to really be present and actively listen in those. I think introverts have a beautiful capacity to develop really deep quality relationships with people, and I think a lot of that comes down to the capacity to actively listen. And when I think about some friendships that I have, I want to hear about the other person's hopes, their dreams, their goals, the big stuff, the deep stuff. And I think that is something that is quite powerful about introverts, is that they really have that capacity to be present, to ditch the distractions, to be 100% with you when they're with you, and I think they're loyal. I think, I know myself, I feel like I'm very loyal in terms of friendships, and I think that's another part of that capacity to really just really love on another person, and be loyal, be supportive, listen to them, and I think I would say that's probably my superpower, and I think that's probably what has brought me into the different professions that I've been in my life, has been that capacity to do that for people, and I enjoy doing it. It doesn't feel like it's a pressure or a stress to do that. I really love it.
So as in you think that is, obviously being the superpower, that it does just come effortlessly to you to be able to have those deeper connections. I guess how do you find although this is also about how to be a great friend to an introvert, how do
Mm.
you find that you are able to, I guess, make those connections from maybe what some people would perceive as like the pitfalls of like, well, how do you even make the connections when you I guess struggle to initiate conversations, or not sorry, struggle to initiate, but yeah, how do you dive
How do we
deeper
get the
into
ball
those?
rolling?
Yeah, how do you
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how do you get the ball rolling to then
Yeah,
develop those
definitely.
deeper relationships?
Definitely. And I think for me in my life, I think it has been some really beautiful relationships that I've been able to foster have been people that I've actually worked alongside. And I don't know, what it is about that. Perhaps it's the common interest that's kind of started it off. We have something in common, something we're kind of working towards together. We're helping each other. We're actively doing a task together. And I feel like sometimes having that kind of third element kind of helps kick it along, and then takes it from maybe that workspace into a more so personal space. I think so too. Some of the really deep friendships that I've had or developed in my life have been from, say, school, and also from, I guess, church-based relationships as well. There's lots of different ways I've kind of started. Sometimes it's been through an extrovert that's introduced me to someone and kind of got the ball rolling kind of for me. Sometimes that has been helpful as well. I think sorry.
So I was just going to ask on that, because I was having a conversation with one of my other beautiful introvert friends today, and something she had asked me, she's like, oh, you should ask your sister this, in terms of like, would you rather, if you were going to a party, going to some kind of friends gathering, would you rather have the person, I guess, give you a little bit more of a backstory, or be able to know that they're going to connect you with someone intentionally that you know that you would have that a value with, rather than you just be thrown into a party?
Yes. Absolutely.
So like for
I
you
would
to have a form of
prefer.
a, not like a
Yeah.
preconceived, oh, this person's, gossipy or something like that, but more of like,
No.
hey, there's someone I know here that you'll actually connect with.
Yeah.
Would that help you, I guess, feel more comfortable showing up to an event?
Yes, most definitely. I think I do know events where I've gone where I haven't really known anyone, and you get thrown in the deep end, and or you get the kind of just, oh, here's this person, here's their name, and here's this person, and here's their name. And I find that overwhelming. And I tend to then probably just segregate a little bit to just maybe one or two people, and kind of remain with them for the duration. But I do feel like if someone were to give me a little bit of a backstory on someone and say, hey, you guys, might kick it off because you've got some common interests here and that. I think for me, it even kind of helps me to feel a little bit prepared for the conversations, or, and I don't know if this is the same of all introverts, but I often feel having an element of preparation for me is really helpful in perhaps thinking about, the types of things that I might say, or how I could, show up for that person, or whatever it is. I would much prefer that option of kind of being given one or two people that I would connect well with, and kind of get kicked off from there.
Is that like I guess, how did you even recognize that in yourself? And this is, I guess, one of the other questions, is that I think some people just go like, oh, that person's shy, or, they get put these labels on them that then they attach to and identify to. And I was just curious, maybe there's someone, because it's only been really recently that I've gone, I don't really think I am an extrovert, and I'm wanting to learn more about this and celebrate that in myself and others, because I think I used to be someone who thought, oh, that person's shy, let's introduce them to more people. But I was like, oh, that's not actually serving them. I haven't actually asked them. I've just made assumptions about them. So what would you say are, maybe for someone listening to this who actually doesn't know if they maybe are more extroverted or more introverted, for the focus on introversion, are there any like signs that you recognized in yourself, or questions that you would encourage someone to ask to figure out if they are more extroverted or introverted?
I think inherently you kind of do you inherently know? Maybe not. I think a lot of my life I would have grown up just believing that I was shy because that's what I was told. You're shy, you don't like being around people, that kind of thing. And sometimes you wonder, is this nature or nurture? But and I think sometimes you become almost that identity to some extent. But for me, I think in embracing being an introvert later in life, it was probably just not that I didn't enjoy being around people. I actually really love people. But it was more that I noticed how depleted I would feel after being around people. And not in a bad way. I think so often everything is perceived to be negatively, but it's kind of like, and I like using this analogy because I use this a little bit in my work as well for different things, but it's like I'm given 10 spoons in a day, and those spoons kind of equate to energy levels. And I have to spend spoons, depending on what interactions I'm having. And I might use up, I don't know, 6 of those spoons in my workday, in terms of interacting with a lot of people there, interacting with, clients, interacting with colleagues, all of that kind of thing. And then if I find out that night I've got to go to a party or something like that, and I think, whoa, the party's going to use up like at least 8 spoons, this is a bit much for me in my day. And it's kind of been more so that has helped me to kind of understand that I am an introvert, in that I have I guess a finite amount of energy that I can use within social sort of circumstances. And I love engaging with people one-on-one. It just does deplete me. And then I find I recharge and I'm able to do it again. And that for me, I guess, kind of helps me to really define introverted, because for me, I see with, being married to someone that's an extrovert, I see that they gain spoons by being around other people. And that's how they fill their battery is being around those people, they get them, whereas I'm giving them away, kind of thing. So I don't know, does that kind of answer your question?
No, it fully does. And I think it's just more, I guess, more maybe journaling to be able to reflect. That would be a great tool to be like, hey, if I could ask myself from this last week, where did I feel energized? Was it from being around other people, or was I actually recognizing when I was able to reflect and be in my own space and create, that was actually where I, felt energized? But I love picturing the spoons thing, because I do think actually what introverts are amazing at is that deeper connection and going into quite a maybe not like always intense, but just a very present, engaged connection. And I think that is something more to be celebrated by the skill of introverts, and something that extroverts can definitely learn from. And I am curious, is there something that you think that you've actually been able to learn from an extrovert, and maybe even something that you've seen an introvert has been able to learn from? Is there something that you've learned and been able to adapt from an extrovert, and same, like, has an extrovert been able to learn and adapt more of a, so we can better serve each other, I guess?
Yes, definitely. I think and again, from being married to an extrovert and having lots of extroverts in my family, I think I've learned a lot of things. And I think in some respects, I have learnt about, I guess, the importance of small talk, in its place. I don't overly like it, but I think I've learnt from extroverts that you can engage in small talk. It's not that hard. And sometimes it is okay to keep things a little bit light. I don't have to go deep on every conversation that I have. It is okay to keep things light, to keep things moving around, to engage with lots of different people at an event rather than just one or two, and that's okay. I can do that every now and again. There are probably little techniques or skills that I've learned from extroverts, just in terms of, I guess just being able to kind of maybe develop new connections for myself, which sometimes is a little bit harder.
Mm.
I think in terms of what extroverts, if I was thinking about my husband in particular, learning from me, I think that would probably be more around, really thinking about social engagements that we go to together. Knowing that I'm being depleted, and he's being energized, and having to kind of compromise that, and in terms of like finite amounts, in terms of going, okay, well, we're going to do this, but we're going to do this for X amount of hours, or we're going to have people come stay, but we're going to have it for X amount of days, and really being able to compromise in terms of that, because of them kind of understanding that perspective of things. But I think also too, extroverts learning that, going deep on those conversations is really important as well. Having that kind of one-on-one solid connection with someone can be really powerful, and really deepen relationships, I guess. So yeah.
What are some of the like pet peeves that just drive an introvert crazy, or just maybe some of the energies that make them shut down, or just because I think there are also people who, when they're really in their authentic introverted self, they're very good at communicating that and being able to be like, I'm stepping away from this. So I guess, what would you say are some of the like things that you've recognized going, yes, what are your pet peeves?
Okay. So pet peeve
just as an introversion, not in general.
Yeah. My pet peeve, number one as an introvert is the drop-ins. People that drop in unannounced and just kind of turn up. That for me is just a little bit overwhelming. And I do vividly remember having my first child 16 years ago. And probably at a really, definitely at a very vulnerable point in my life, where I was probably just wanting to be a little bit insular and just kind of, have myself, have my baby, sometimes have my husband, in the room, but I was, probably very much bunkering down to some degree. But having drop-ins then rocked my world, not in a good way. And I think, and I think that's something that's kind of continued for me to some extent. As much as I love the person, potentially coming, or the people potentially coming, that for me is just, I think for me, it almost kind of comes into like a disrespect, I guess, of my time or my space or my, whatever it might be, that you're just kind of coming into that space, because I wouldn't do that to someone. So I think that's probably pet peeve number one. It's the first thing that came to my head. Another one would be when people are highly distracted in conversation, and not listening, but wanting to kind of have a conversation with you at the same time. So they're there, but they're not there. I would actually much prefer someone to just be really genuine and honest and just say, hey, not a great time for me at the moment, I got to go and do this. Totally fine, respect that. But when someone is kind of half in and half out of a conversation with me, drives me nuts. I don't know if that's just an introvert, if that's an introvert thing or not, but yeah, they'd probably be my top two. Like, don't do those things, please.
Yes, I think that's a great takeaway for someone to recognize, to be a great friend to an introvert. And I think they just are both things that are just, I think, nice things to adapt anyway. Yes, a nice human thing to do. I would say introverts really value their time so much, and you're so intentional about time. And I think, would you say something that is maybe again another superpower of introverts is that you, not that it's a sense of control, which I know I can definitely have, but you are protective of your time. And so you want to schedule out who those spoons go to. So that's the thought I had just before was that I would imagine another pet peeve would probably be surprises.
Oh, yes.
Yes, which I guess is drop-ins, isn't it?
Yeah, it's drop-ins. I must admit, I do love, for example, my husband has done some beautiful surprises in the past, but he knows me, and those surprises don't involve tons of people.
Yes.
So they're nice surprise, and I do like being surprised in that respect, like a pamper weekend or, something like that, really, really lovely
like
things.
but one where you might show up and there's 30 people in your house after a
Oh,
work
yeah, not
day.
okay.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
okay.
So I guess it's more to show up better is as friends is to really know the person, because I think when you're in those relationships, you recognize I don't need to, like, this person won't feel celebrated or seen if I throw them in front of a bunch of
Yes,
people, but this person
yes.
doesn't need anything like put on social media about them or anything like that on their
No,
birthday. They literally just
no.
need a night away, a pampered weekend. uh,
Yes,
and that, I guess, because really it's about making each other feel more seen
yes,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. So but
Absolutely.
I can see how more of a thoughtful surprise. So yes to surprises, but maybe one that has more, yeah, I guess thoughtfulness and intention behind
Yes,
it. Okay.
yes, definitely. Just
So
don't drop
okay,
in.
unannounced. Like introverts, what I have also maybe noticed is that introverts really can't fake it,
No, not at
nor
all.
should they
Not at
try.
all. Which, I think is probably another superpower is the authenticity. I
Yeah.
struggle to fake it. I can't wing
Yes.
it. I can't, because I think when I do show up, it is being authentic, it is being genuine.
I guess
Yeah.
that's not to say, I don't want that to come across to anyone who's more extroverted to announce that they always showing up as if they're faking it, because I don't necessarily think
No,
that is the case at all, because
no.
I know some amazing extroverts that are showing up fully as themselves, but that
Oh,
they,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but they don't ever, what I would, I guess, want someone hearing this is that you would never make someone who, yeah, I guess, what would you say to someone? Maybe this is my, okay. So I'm doing this thing where I'm trying to have a scenario for each one of my podcasts.
Okay.
So imagine you're in this scenario and there's, a host of a party really wants to serve, all of the people who are coming there the best. What advice would you want to give them to say, hey, this is going to, if, say, they know that there's going to be a bunch of extroverts and there's going to be a bunch of introverts. What advice would you want to give to the party host to say, hey, this is what's going to make introverts feel very seen, if you want my advice on that?
Oh, that's a hard one. Because I think from an introvert's perspective, you say the word party and I go, oh.
That's already a tip right there of going, is there another word?
It's like, oh, party.
Yes.
I think for introverts to feel seen at a party, oh geez. That's a tricky one, because I know in situations where I have felt really seen at parties has probably been when I've had opportunities to engage in one-on-one conversations, with people, and not feeling like, and I think maybe from a party host perspective, I don't know, maybe if you're setting up a kind of party where, there is capacity for conversations to happen in smaller groups or one-on-one or things like that, so that because that's where introverts thrive. We don't thrive in those kind of big scenarios where there's, kind of lots of conversations happening and it's all kind of quite superficial or haphazard. And we don't like being the center of attention. I'm saying we here, but me, but don't like that center of attention. So we wouldn't like to be the one that everyone's kind of looking at or talking to or that kind of thing. So if I can kind of reflect on parties that I have really actually enjoyed, it has been those ones where I've had beautiful one-on-one connections with people, and been able to sit with them for a period of time and really talk to them, go deep in conversation. And in saying that, I fully realize that it is not always feasible to go deep in conversation at every event that you're at. It's just not reasonable, but I know that those times when I have been able to do that at parties, that's where I've actually really enjoyed a party, and have felt like it's a good thing. Yeah.
I guess because the thing is, you also want to be someone who, I would imagine, oh, I'm not going to invite so and so, they never come because they're an introvert, they're never going to show up.
Yes.
They're, I would imagine that's probably a story a lot of extroverts say was like, oh, they're not going to come because,
They'll be
they're
flaky.
yeah, oh, they're just, they just won't come because they don't like big parties. But I guess it's more of a, being someone who's in that position of going, well, I want them to feel welcome. So maybe if I communicate to them, hey, I'm putting this invitation to you, just letting you know, I know for like, here's some information. I know for sure there's going to be some comfy seats. I've already checked. It's not going to be a loud music kind of vibe. It is going to be more of, there's a few tables. Like, I guess it's more of a like, would you rather a host be like, hey, here's a bit more extra information for you to decide, but I know, and for them to come across in the energy of like, if you choose not to come, I know that's nothing on our relationship.
Yes. And that's probably a really good point there, even that you raised, because I think that I often find that if I did turn down an invitation for something, which doesn't often happen, but if I was to do that, don't personalize it. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with the fact that my energy's depleted. I've had a big work week, or I've had this going on, and I haven't got anything left. And when I show up, I want to show up as, authentically me, and I don't want to show up, being depleted. I don't want to show up in that kind of space. So sorry to cut you off there. I like just more so that personalization. I'm like, don't personalize it if you say no. It's got nothing to do with it.
How do you think that extroverts and introverts can better communicate their, I guess, boundaries and expectations without having to over explain yourself? Because sometimes the last thing you want to do is have to explain all the time why you don't want to go to a party or why you don't want to go to a social gathering. But how is there a way that to better communicate just with friends on your expectations of like, hey, I'm going to come, but just so you know, I'm only going to come for an hour, and that kind of thing. Is there anything that you would say is a better way for us to communicate?
I mean, I think it's just that. I think it's being honest. And I appreciate that from people. I want people to say that to me. I want people to say, hey, we're going to come, but we're going to come for an hour or two, and then we're going to go because we've got a lot of stuff on or whatever. I've got to prepare for this, or, I like that. And that's, I feel like that's all we've got to do is be open in our communication. And be accepting of that too, and again, don't personalize it. It's got nothing to do with you. And I think if we could do more of that, I think I spent a lot of my life not communicating those types of boundaries because I thought it was wrong. I thought it was wrong to put I guess parameters on other people. And I think for me it was more around perceiving that I wasn't hospitable or generous in spirit or whatever it was if I wasn't sort of opening my house and having people for as long as they want, or that kind of thing. And I think I always perceived it to be wrong to put those kind of boundaries or parameters, and now I'm going, hang on a minute, it's not wrong at all. In actual fact, we need to do that to preserve ourselves and that self-caring, to be able to do that. And I would want other people to do that for me. So I very much understand, their boundaries and their limits. So I can respect that, because for me, I want to be able to respect that. So give me the parameter, like be really specific, be clear, just as you said, we're going to stay for an hour or two, or we're going to have you come and stay, but stay for a night or, or two at the most, that kind of thing. So really kind of making it clear in terms of what you want. And I think that works well.
Do you think as well, I've just from a personal experience realizing that sometimes as well, and it could be different energies come with, the way you're communicating things. I get that. But I guess also, when as an introvert communicating that to an extrovert, they'd be like, just chill out. I just invited you to a party, rather than maybe actually what a better, way of approaching that could be, hey, I so respect that. That's all, like celebrating that in them, because I do recognize that they can then say things that make you go, oh, okay, I'm not gonna go there again. Because if you're telling me to chill out and I was just trying to communicate my boundaries.
Yes, 100% that. Because again, I think it comes back to that belief that there's something wrong with an introvert, that chill out, you're too highly strung, you're too anxious, you're too stressed,
you're too organized.
Yeah. And it's actually like, no, I'm learning to self-care. And that's got to be celebrated, you know, for an introvert, I think,
Yes.
as well, because it's really important to do that. Just as it's important for an extrovert to self-care by being with people, you know,
Yeah.
and by socializing and by going to events, you know, and in terms of my husband, that's what I respect in him, in that, you know what, you go to those things, you do those things because that's what makes you recharge. And yeah, it all comes back to that kind of respect.
Yeah. And I guess feeling that sense of in the communication, whether or not it is, you know, in a relationship, or even just in friendships, of going, hey, listen, I know that we have such a great friendship, but I don't feel any sense of insecurity or jealousy. If you want to go out and hang out with lots of other friends, don't feel like you have to invite
Absolutely.
me all the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And or that I think our friendship is any less because I'm not coming along to all of those things
Yes.
with you. And yeah, I guess I've recognized that in my own friendships, of going, oh, I don't need to go to all of these things to not celebrate
Yes.
that we have such a unique thing with
Most
us.
definitely.
Yes.
Most definitely.
My last question for you, lovely Laura, is what are some of the myths that you would like to bust that have been maybe put on introverts?
Okay. So I've got a few.
Okay.
So number one is what I raised in the beginning, that introverts need fixing. No, we don't. Pretty happy how we are. We're not broken, we're not defective. You know, and that's probably my number one. I think we spoke a bit about that. The second one would be that introverts are unhappy. That's probably something that I've perceived from other people. You know, maybe in that same vein of, you know, oh, you're shy, you're by yourself, you know, oh, you know, and it's that kind of oh face,
You
you
need to
know,
get out more.
and yeah, oh, you poor thing, you know, like, oh,
You're
um,
eating alone.
no. In actual fact, you know, I was describing this the other day. When I'm by myself, you know, particularly if I've spent, you know, and you know, as I said before, I work with people, I have work colleagues, I work intensively with people every day. You know, I come home to a house full of people that I love. But you know, when I have time to myself, I actually feel giddy. You know, it's that kind of, I was trying to find an emotion for it. It's giddy. It's like I am so excited by it that I find myself smiling. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can read my textbook on, you know, whatever it is that I'm studying at the moment. Or I can you know, or I can do some exercise, or I can go for a walk, or I can do this, or I can watch some Netflix and chill out, or I can, you know, whatever it might be. I get so excited by being on my own, and I love it. You know, obviously not all the time. It's that is my recharge time. So I guess the myth of introverts being unhappy, no, no. No, we're happy people. Particularly if we get that alone time. We get giddy. So I think another one that I wanted to talk about too was the myth that introverts don't like people. And that's a huge one that I want to smash, because I love people. Every one of my careers, I work intensively with people, and I help people in all of my careers that I've had, and I love doing that. I love engaging with someone and just finding out everything there is to know about them, and helping them through that process. And my nearly 14-year-old son the other day was saying to me, Mom, I don't think I like people. I think I'm a bit like you. And I said to him, mate, it's not that at all. I said, just move up a little minute. And we kind of, you know, chatted for a bit, because I actually kind of discovered that, you know what, he has people around him quite a lot, you know, and he actually draws people to him. You know, he's quite a magnetic kind of personality. He's very empathic. He wants to help his friends, you know, a lot of the time, but he finds that draining. And so trying to sort of explain to him that doesn't mean that you don't like people. You actually really love on people, but you know, in doing that, it does kind of drain your battery. But then you having that little bit of time on your own recharges you again. And you know what? You actually really enjoy being with those people again. So I think there is that myth, and I've had that said to me so many times, is, oh, Laura, yeah, she just doesn't like people. No. So let's smash that one. Anyone hearing that about me? Let's just smash that one right now. Because I love on people. And I think too, I have really, I love the friendships that I have with people. I have quality over quantity, you know, and I have some really solid, beautiful friendships that I've had for a long time, and I love on those people. I think that's all of them. Yeah, I think we've covered all of them, because I think the last one was kind of introverts need company when they're on their own. No, we don't. We're recharging. Leave us alone.
I just wanted to say on that one as well, I think you're right about, I actually find introverts are quite magnetic people. And although I do agree that extroverts absolutely are great magnets for people, and they bring such a beautiful energy, and you can draw to them. But I also find introverts have this, like, another superpower I've recognized and want to work on in myself more, is they've just got this sense of, I'm really curious about that person. They seem, they're very, intuitive people. Not to say extroverts aren't. I think it's a whole different thing you have to work on. But I do find that I just find that a lot of the people that I've been really drawn to are quite more introverted minded. And I've just been so drawn to them because they have this thing that I'm always just curious to know more about them. And I think that's for sure, a superpower in them. As you were saying that, it did just trigger another question I wanted to quickly ask, is that I find that introverts don't necessarily have to always have that consistent connection, which maybe a lot of extroverts maybe have with people, where they feel like they're going to be in touch with them all the time. Do you see where I'm going with that? Do you have thoughts on that, where you kind of go, like, we could maybe not talk for a while, and then we're speaking again for hours? So I'm just curious, like, introverts maybe don't need to have that consistent connection all the time.
No. And I think that's probably something too, that I do find some people can misconstrue or misinterpret as being, maybe they're not wanting to hang out anymore. Maybe the friendship is, maybe it's not going well. And for me, sometimes, and I think because perhaps it's the level of intensity or the level of deep conversations or things like that, I love doing that. And I've got some friends, friends that I've had for, gosh, how old am I? 30 plus years. Hey, Beck, if you're listening, I know she probably will be. But friendships like that, where we don't live anywhere near each other. And, we text every now and again, but we get together and it's like just the time melts away. And you just come back to that really solid kind of friendship. And we know that we don't need to kind of spend that time in between times kind of maintaining, because the friendship is there, it's built. We don't need to kind of do that. And yes, we're 100% there for each other if there's things going on, or any of that kind of stuff. I think that that's very much there. But I have actually been in situations with probably new friendships where people have interpreted my lack of contact as being there's a problem, and in essence there isn't at all. Actually, I really love the friendship, but I actually can't maintain that, I guess, perhaps that level of intensity all the time. Particularly if you've got a friendship that wants connection, every day, every couple of days, that kind of thing. That's that's probably what I've noticed about other introverts as well, is that we can go for long spells and then kind of get together, and it's like the time goes. So
and again, not personalizing that.
Please don't personalize it.
Yes.
It's and not you, it's me.
But then also, if that's something that you recognize as an extrovert, or as the other person on the receiving end, to communicate your expectations better.
Yeah, definitely.
And if they can't meet that, then at least allow them to communicate that back, rather than assume this person's not interested.
And in saying that too, I think I have, and that's probably something that extroverts have taught me, is you know, sometimes that light connection, you know, and that for me has probably been a learned thing where I have kind of gone, okay, well, some people actually do need that connection once a week or, you know, a couple of times a week or whatever it might be. And so for me now, it might just be, okay, I've got to remember, I've got to send a text to that person, or, you know, and because that's important for me that I'm kind of showing up for them, you know, for those extroverts, but just having that capacity to kind of, I guess, maintain the connection.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. And I so appreciate your time. I hope this has been a good spoon for you today.
It
And I
has
guess
been.
Zoom is probably a great thing, I think, for introverts as well, because you can still control the introverts love when they not control the environment, but know that the environment's, you know, safe, where they can be open, where they can have the deeper conversations, not with all of the distractions, like you said. There's just a bunch of gems that as I like doing this as your sister. It has been a fun and different thing for me even to experience, but I'm so grateful for you. Well, thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And yeah, I hope you took some great gems away on how to be a great friend and how to discover more about introverts. I definitely have for myself and hope you have too. So thank you. And thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Hannah.